It's 5:53 in the a.m. I just had breakfast. I got my dog Shelby some bacon and eggs. I think she prefers the eggs to the bacon. I'm still working on this question. This is the benefit of working on online education. I don't have to be up for a 9 a.m. class. You know, I can fall asleep when I'm tired. I can do my assignments when I want. And if anybody says, "What do I do for money?" Well, until I'll be starting my supervised hours, so I'll probably be on a schedule for that. Um, but I had been working at this place called Citizens Options Unlimited, which is a DDI facility, and I was hoping to move into a behavioral specialist role. Um, and they had fairly good benefits. But I kept having to shift my schedule around for papers and stuff. So I thought this semester I would just forego employment and take a heavier course load. And they were good because they were going to cover the cost of tuition. They had a federal student loan forgiveness plan. They had tuition reimbursement. They had just some other benefits that would have assisted in payment of my degree. So the title says that the pursuit of my healthcare goals started when I was in grade school, and I have to emphasize this because there have been some recent events, and I don't want it to seem reflexive to. I don't want to seem like I'm competing with my sister, who has a degree in psychology. I was heavily influenced by my father, who's an endocrinologist, and my mother, who's a registered nurse. My sister also had some interest in going into healthcare, so she chose Dickinson College as her educational institute of choice, where they had a geology program that she had some interest in, but she was also interested in doing pre-health, and her advisor was my advisor, and actually her advisor was at her roommate's wedding, and so my sister decided to go the psychology route, and she majored in psychology, and then she got a graduate degree in psychology. I, on the other hand, got a degree in biology and chemistry with the intentions of going into healthcare. Um, and I've continued my efforts by getting a graduate certificate in health law, which I'll probably continue to the full-blown master's of legal studies in health law, and now I'm going for a clinical psychology and PhD. I had to delay my enrollment in graduate school because I had some sleep paralysis, and this was a terrible occurrence that would happen nearly every morning. And basically, what it felt like I was suffocating. I felt like I was glued to my bed, so I was in like a wake state where I was aware of my surroundings, and I was aware I couldn't breathe. And I wasn't sure how long these episodes would last. I mean, they might have been going on for like 5 to 10 minutes, but it felt like I was being suffocated for an extended period of time, and I didn't want to. I kept thinking I didn't want to die this way. You know, it's a situation where being single and not having anyone next to you became panic-inducing. Because if I had one of these episodes and there was someone there to wake me, someone might be able to shake me and get me out of this paralytic state. But since I was sleeping by myself, I had no one to do that. I was living at home with my parents when a lot of these occurrences happened, and there's no way that they could get me out of, like, I was worried that I would be suffocating in one room and my body was like screaming for help, and they were in the other room, or that, no one would be able to help me. Um, it's one of those experiences I that some would describe as ineffable, I guess. Um, it brought me to the point of contemplating suicide. So I wanted to resolve that issue before going into a graduate school. After I resolved that situation, I matriculated into an MBA accounting program with some healthcare administration aspirations. I thought I would I thought I would work on the administration committee of a medical school or work in a hospital. Um, but I spoke with a young girl, and she convinced me to go with my passions and to be more involved in medical research, um, and I could set policy. So I have here a document open. It says, I feel this document necessary as my motives for pursuing my career goals have been put under scrutiny. In April 2020, I was put into a coma. I do not want my pursuit of health law and clinical psychology to appear reflexive to that incident. My healthcare goals were established at a young age, and my pedigree and aptitude made taking over my father's medical practice a reasonable goal. I made some sacrifices along the way that I do not want to have done in vain. I worked on my bedside manner and ethics from a young age, as I wished to be someone who not only spoke with conviction because they were confident in their professional judgment, but also someone who was compassionate, warm, and receptive. I told my father after I finished my undergraduate studies I would not pursue graduate work until I sorted out my sleep issues, which included obstructive sleep apnea, insomnia, chronic fatigue, and sleep paralysis. I did not want to take on the financial risk and the time commitment with the uncertainty that I might not finish. So the sleep paralysis and sleep apnea were confirmed by a sleep study done by the sleep center adjacent to Good Samaritan Hospital in West Islip, New York. I had 2 of them done. One of them said my sleep was disrupted every 3 minutes. They gave me an 8 psi CPAP machine. The ENT, or who was working there, said I had enlarged tonsils, and it was after I had my tonsils removed that the sleep paralysis subsided, where it was a near daily occurrence. Now it only happens when I eat goldfish, the little baked cheese snack. It dries out my nasal passages. Here's my 8th grade graduation picture indicating a desire to become a surgeon. I was taking 9th grade math and science at the time. I was an A student. So I had encouragement from my peers and faculty to pursue my goals. My father was an endocrinologist and my mother a registered nurse. It also indicates the high school I was going to, Chaminade, which I chose in 7th grade as part of my career path to differentiate myself and work on my moral character. My favorite band at the time was Limp Bizkit, and my favorite sport was football. The year was 2001. I still like football. Limp Bizkit, I haven't faced, like, my friend takes on this philosophy that music somehow defines your maturity. Now, for me, music has progressed where one of my first albums was The Score by the Fugees. And I played it through my father's speaker, his surround sound system in our TV room, and it was filled with curses and N-bombs. And my mother heard this and said, you can't listen to this. So my music taste kind of changed due to the nature, to the subject matter. I had some clean versions of Life After Death and Country Grammar and stuff. And, but basically I was forced into like a nu metal genre in order to satisfy my drums and bass and hip hop type palette. Um, but some of the music there was emo, like Papa Roach and Linkin Park. I love Linkin Park, but some of the subject matter, people are like, "Do you identify with the song Numb?" No, no, I just like the music. They have the formula for success. They have 3-minute songs and a 12 song album. And they did that, what, 2, 3 times? And very, I mean, Theory is great, Meteor is great. I like Minutes to Midnight, that's probably my favorite album. Um, After that, I don't really like their music all too much because I think they kind of sold out with the whole Transformers thing they played. New Divide is just another variation of that what I've done, which was very polarizing when it came out. I remember playing World of Warcraft, and we were in the Burning Crusade era, and Minutes to Midnight came out, and Meteora and Hybrid Theory were like regarded as these masterpieces, and Minutes to Midnight came out, and people are like, "Is this good?" And I thoroughly enjoy those albums. But yeah, my music taste basically funneled into electronic music, music that was sans lyrics, where nobody can say like, when I listen to Korn, my mother asked me like, "Do you feel this way?" No, I just like the rhythm. And when I make songs in the genre of Korn, I tend to create some of the similar subject matter, like songs about suicide and abuse and stuff. But I certainly don't feel that way. Um, so I became heavy into electronic music, music that doesn't have lyrics, uh, BSOD, which I believe stands for Better Sounding on Drugs, Wolfgang Gartner, Feed Me, Dead Mouse. Um, if I go to my, these are some of my recently added ones. Mort Fustang, um, Armin van Buren. Is that how you pronounce it? I guess for a while there he was considered like one of the best producers. Um, so no one could say like, do you listen to this song because your daddy hits you and stuff? No, it's just a good beat. Um, so I don't regret listening to Limp Bizkit, but it's no longer part of heavy rotation. Um, Mainly because I found music I enjoy more, and I don't uh, really. I shouldn't say I don't identify with the lyrics because I never really pay that much mind to the lyrics. Um, but it certainly doesn't help that nearly everybody hates the band. It's kind of like listening to Nickelback. For some reason, nobody likes Nickelback. See, I even added Limp Bizkit. So basically, I had an iTunes library that got, my identity got stolen. So my email associated with my iTunes account got stolen. So I deleted the account and I lost all the music. It was nearly 2,700 songs I purchased through Apple, and then an additional like 1,300 or more that I had on CDs. So it was like a 5,000 song library, about 250 artists, and I lost that. But Apple decided to merge with Beats, and they have this whole subscription thing where I pay $10 a month and can download anything I want. And I'm gonna stick to this ecosystem because, uh, you know, I'm familiar with Apple Music and it has all the music I like. Anyway, here's my 8th grade report card. So here's my SAT profile, and it indicates that I was interested in pre-medical medical. So we have 8th grade indicating pre-medical medical. We have SAT indicating pre-medical medical. And here's my pamphlet from my high school graduation. I was awarded a high school diploma, an honor character certificate, President's Award for Educational Excellence. Not listed is a scholarship to Fairfield. Here's a scholarship to Siena. Here's the Hofstra University President's Scholarship. I wound up going to Dickinson College. Dickinson is described as a highly selective school with an acceptance rate of 52%, graduation of 85%. Well, they're moving up in the world. This number had been lower. And average cost after aid, $32,000 per year. It was listed on U.S. News and Report's top 50 schools in the country, and if it wasn't for that list, I would have never heard of them, and I never would have gone there. Apparently, they're ranked number 51 in national liberal arts colleges, so they just shy of the top 50 again. There's my high school graduation picture. Here's a transcript from the University of Washington, where I took a course in psychology. And I didn't raise my hand enough on this online course because otherwise my grade would be higher. Now, my research professor said, don't talk about grades or anything, But to me, it does matter a little bit. Basically, if I hadn't been volunteering at the Laminer Humane Society, I would have had a 4 on the class. I really don't appreciate when grades are reflective of participation and not a mastery of the material. Now, here's me in 2017 at a Washington Nationals game. The gentleman to my right worked for the Pentagon, and he shakes my hand and he says, "You're a good person, right?" That's something where I heard like 3 or 4 times around this time. I don't know if it was a meme or something. And then the gentleman to my left, by chance, happened to have a friend who worked in healthcare policy. The friend of his he had a bachelor's in international relations. I remember sending this individual my resume. I had worked on it with my aunt. I did not hear back from that individual. I believe Tanner Rourke pitched. This must be Tanner Rourke. And these are the best seats I've ever had because I've sat behind home plate before, but I was able to see the pitch perfectly. And one of the reasons why I went down to Washington, D.C. on that trip was to visit the AAMC. And I also looked at Georgetown, which had a Master's of Public Health and Master's of Public Policy, where I had been considering going into those programs to set healthcare policy. Since then, I have found programs at Hofstra, which is an LLM in healthcare policy, and Seton Hall that has a Master's of Health Law. The Hofstra program was fairly expensive. Seton Hall allowed me to take courses a la carte, and I took 3 of them, which turns into a graduate certificate in health and hospital law. I'm considering taking the full-blown thing, and I would have a dual degree in Master's in Health Law and Master's of Pharmaceutical Law. And I'm also going for a clinical psychology PhD. So I can trace my pursuit of healthcare back to grade school. And prior to me put in a coma. And a lot of this stuff for like HIPAA and some of the health law. So growing up, my father's an endocrinologist, and that doesn't mean I'm well versed in endocrinology. So I'm not going to be able to treat your diabetes because my father was an endocrinologist. Instead, I learned more about the health law, health policy, the business side. In fact, a lot of my career aspirations were to take over his private practice in order to improve cash flow for him. So I wanted to see him adopt a system of electronic filing before electronic health care records were mandated around 2008. I wanted to see him have his own in-house laboratory work. So his own blood work and his own radiology, do sonograms and stuff in-house. My father bills over $600,000 to Medicare and Medicaid, yet he feels tight at the wallet. He's pulling in about $184,000 per year. And that's after paying medical malpractice, rent, and his employees, and taxes. So the other reason why I'm better versed in that as opposed to the endocrinology is growing up, there really is no like starter career for medicine. Sure, you can become an EMS, but you have to become EMS certified. And there's a lot of liability in treating patients. I can't just sit there in class and offer up medical advice. In fact, one of the deterrents for me doing that was when I was over a friend's house and I told him how to treat cramps. I told him to increase his zinc and potassium. And his mother, who was a nurse, basically made a comment like, "Oh, here's our little pharmacy guy. Here's our little here's our little medical expert." And I didn't feel good about that. I felt there was liability in giving out this advice. I didn't want to be giving out anything that wasn't, empirically supported. So a lot of my ignorance in the field is I wouldn't have any application of the knowledge. And I felt it the duty of medical school to teach me physiology, to teach me medicine. My bachelor's degree was not to teach me all that stuff. My bachelor's degree was not to get me into medical school. My bachelor's degree was so that I could diversify my education, learn things that were interesting to me, learn things that I was potentially better at than medicine, and perhaps there was a career better suited for me. But I wasted my time tunneling on a pre-med biology curriculum where I ignored other studies that might have been better fit for me, and certainly producing more job skills. So here's a book I purchased, Health Law, Furrow et al. I purchased it December 19th, 2019. I didn't purchase it after April 2020 to say, I'm going to sue the people who put me in a coma. It wasn't reflexive to that. This comes from a genuine desire to enter the field of medicine based on the observation of my father's private practice. I certainly had the capacity to take over his practice, but the hardest part of getting into medicine is the training. It requires 4 years of undergrad work, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, and it's hard to get into medical school. You need like a 3.8, and you need like, on the old you need a high GPA, and you need good metrics. You need good scores on the MCAT entrance exams. Now, some people might say, oh, 3.8, that's easy. What'd you take, Hacky Sack 101? Did you take organic chemistry where there was just a whole case where students failed the course at NYU because of the degree of difficulty in the course? My sister, who graduated with Latin honors, she only got like a C in biology. She finished with like a 3.8 or something. She was advised to go into psychology. Nobody advised me to switch majors. My view, my view of the future going into my undergraduate studies was I wanted a curriculum heavy in math and coding because the future of medicine was assisted technology, where we could rely on a technology like Watson or something, where a doctor didn't have to be an encyclopedia of knowledge for all the diseases. A lot of the training I felt is reflexive to the liability, where doctors are so hazed, they're so overeducated in order to diminish, to reduce any liability. Now, my career goals, I should have never picked Dickinson College. There are schools, let's use like a football analogy. Let's say Alabama is, their pedigree is producing wide receivers. We'll use recent history. Um, Although I can't recall the name of that wide receiver who was drafted recently. I guess Amari Cooper went there. Not Amari Cooper. Who's the one who used to be on the Raiders and then he got traded to the Cowboys? Or let's use Oklahoma. We'll use recent history for Oklahoma. They produce quarterbacks. So they produce Baker Mayfield, they produce Kyler Murray. So if you want to be a scientist, you go to MIT. If you want to become a Supreme Court justice, you go to Harvard. If you want to become the Surgeon General, which is kind of, I shouldn't say that was my goal, but I wanted to be a leader in my industry where other people in my field would emulate what I do. Now, originally, the vision I had of that was taking over my father's private practice and other endocrinologists would emulate what I do. But that's really not a reasonable goal. Why would other doctors kind of follow what I did? So, what I should have done was go into a PhD of medical research, and that way, doctors would be applying my knowledge of, they would be employing my medical devices and pharmaceutical interventions into their practice. So I would be involved in drug design, drug discovery, medical device R&D. So if doctors were looking for a new standard of care, they might look at some of the research I was doing and incorporate that into their practice. It's not my best game.
She doesn't even have Shield Bash anymore.